The Hall of Suns was silent. That silence was not peace, it was pressure, the kind that made even the air taste metallic. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in the arc-shaped amphitheater of the Galactic Council, their bodies shimmering under the light of a blue-white dwarf suspended above the chamber. In the center, inside a field of containment light, stood the representatives of Earth, 3 humans against the combined judgment of 50 civilizations. The council speaker, a serpent-bodied Verithan whose translucent skull pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, lifted its head and hissed, "The species of Sol 3, designated Homo sapiens, stand accused of escalating beyond permitted defensive measures, violating Accord 10 of the Interstellar Peace Charter. You stand before judgment." Colonel Nathaniel Reeve didn't flinch. He stood straight in his worn dark blue uniform, the Earth insignia at his collar scuffed from years of use. Beside him, Ambassador Leona Hayes, composed, sharp-eyed, unblinking, rested her hands on the polished obsidian table. Behind her, Dr. Elias Kane, Earth's chief exostrategist, watched the alien assembly with quiet disdain. He'd seen this moment coming for years. The Council's verdict had already been written before the session began. Humanity had done the unthinkable, destroyed an invading fleet from the XYTH Dominion, not just repelling them but pursuing them back into their home system. The retaliation had been clean, swift, and overwhelming. It had reminded the galaxy of something ancient, the predator that slept behind human civility. Now, that predator was on trial. Reeve's voice, steady as iron, broke the silence. "Permission to speak, Council Speaker." A ripple of discontent shivered across the delegates. Few humans had ever spoken directly to the Verithan in that tone. The speaker tilted its head. "You may speak, human." Reeve stepped forward, boots echoing in the amphitheater. "You call it escalation. We call it survival. The XYTH burned 2 of our colonies, killed 40,000 civilians, and sent our children to slave pits. You expect restraint? You expect mercy? The Accord expects obedience," the speaker hissed. Leona Hayes leaned forward, her voice measured, diplomatic. "The Accord was written before humanity was invited into this council. You fear us because we refuse to kneel." Murmurs erupted, clicks, hums, and guttural sounds of outrage from across the chamber. The speaker's bioluminescent veins flared crimson. "Human arrogance blinds you. You are a young species. You rise too fast. You fight too well." Dr. Kane smiled faintly. "We fight because we have to. Every world we built under fire." The speaker slammed a clawed appendage into the dais. "Enough. The Council will deliberate. Humanity's membership and access to galactic networks will be terminated. Sanctions will be applied to all Earth-linked colonies. You are confined to your solar system until further notice." The chamber erupted into light and sound. The verdict had been cast. Humanity exiled, silenced, dismissed. Reeve clenched his jaw but said nothing. Hayes merely gathered her papers with cold precision. Kane whispered, "They think cutting us off will weaken us. They've forgotten how humanity learned to thrive alone." That night, aboard the human diplomatic ship Solace, the 3 sat in silence as the vessel drifted beyond the Council's orbit. The stars outside were streaks of faint silver. Reeve stared through the viewport, expression unreadable. Hayes broke the silence. "They'll blockade us within the month. No trade. No communication relays. They think they've won." Reeve's voice was low. "They've signed their own death warrant." Kane leaned forward. "You're thinking of activation?" Reeve nodded once. "The Ares Protocol. The fleet's been waiting for authorization. If they isolate Earth, we remind them why humanity survived every extinction attempt in its history." Hayes hesitated. "You realize what that means, Nate? If we execute Ares, there's no going back. It won't just be war. It'll be retribution." He turned toward her, eyes hard. "They judged us for defending our people. Now they'll learn what it means when humanity stops defending and starts retaliating." The room fell silent again. Only the faint hum of the ship's engines filled the void. 3 days later, the blockade began. Council vessels surrounded Earth's outer colonies, massive cruisers marked with the insignias of half the known species. They jammed communications, seized freighters, and demanded surrender. Earth's ambassadors were recalled. The networks went dark. But in the shadows of the Kuiper Belt, a different kind of silence stirred the mechanical heartbeat of the Ares fleet, a collection of stealth ships operating under black protocols. They'd been built in secrecy, hidden from the Council's oversight. For years, humanity had played the role of the quiet student in the galactic order. The Council had mistaken humility for weakness. At 0300 hours Earth Standard, Colonel Reeve transmitted the activation code. Across the void, hundreds of vessels awakened. Their hulls, black as obsidian, shimmered with adaptive shielding. Quantum drives hummed to life. Onboard AI cores lit up with synchronized intent, a single directive: retaliate. Back in the Council chamber, alarms rang across the capital world of Irinder Prime. Ships were disappearing, not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. Council fleets reported jamming fields they couldn't track, weapons they couldn't detect. Panic rippled through the delegates. Unknown energy signatures, an aide shrieked. They're bypassing our defense grids. The speaker froze. Who dares? Then the holographic sky above the Hall of Suns flickered, and the face of Colonel Nathaniel Reeve appeared. He stood against a backdrop of stars, the Earth emblem glinting on his uniform. "This is Colonel Reeve of the United Earth Defense Command," he said, his tone calm but resolute. "You judged humanity guilty for surviving your wars. You isolated us, thinking we would beg. You were wrong." The feed crackled. Behind him, faint outlines of warships gleamed, vast, angular silhouettes dwarfing anything the Council had ever constructed. Reeve continued, "From this moment, Earth withdraws from your accord. Any vessel entering soul space will be treated as hostile. You taught us diplomacy. We perfected war." Then the transmission cut out. In the silence that followed, the Council speaker whispered the words none of them wanted to believe. "Humanity has declared independence." But Kane's earlier warning echoed across the stars, a truth that the galaxy was about to learn in blood and fire. They forgot how humanity learned to survive alone. The war began not with an explosion, but with silence. 100 star systems woke to find their orbital satellites dead, their navigation grids blind, their military channels swallowed by static. The galaxy had spent centuries mastering communication. Humanity, in a matter of hours, had made it meaningless. From the Council capital on Irinder Prime, the speaker watched in disbelief as reports poured in. Entire fleets gone. Power grids offline. Transport lines severed. Each message was worse than the last. Worlds that once laughed at human ambition were now cut off from the networked arteries of galactic civilization. No one understood how Earth had done it. But Leona Hayes did. From her command vessel, Artemis, orbiting Luna's dark side, she stood before a wall of flickering tactical projections. The Ares Protocol had been her creation, not as a weapon, but as a contingency. Now, it had become the instrument of judgment. Dr. Elias Kane entered the chamber quietly, his face pale in the reflected glow of the holoscreens. "We've disabled 72 planetary networks. The Verithan fleets are trapped in their own systems. The Council's central AI grid is blind." Hayes didn't look at him. "And civilian casualties?" He hesitated. "Unconfirmed. But there are reports of life support failures. Power collapses in major cities." Her eyes closed. "They wanted us contained. Not destroyed." Kane's tone hardened. "They burned our children alive, Leona. Don't pretend they didn't." Hayes turned toward him, voice low and trembling with fury. "And if we become them, what's left of us?" He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Meanwhile, far beyond Sol, Colonel Nathaniel Reeve commanded the vanguard of the Ares fleet near Orantau, a Council shipyard world responsible for building the dreadnoughts that once patrolled Earth's colonies. Through the viewport, he watched as blue plasma blooms flared across the dark void, silent blossoms of death. "Commander, shipyard defenses neutralized," said Lieutenant Harper, her voice flat, professional. She'd seen too much already. Their fleet surrendered without firing. Reeves' jaw tightened. "Transmit evacuation orders. Give them 6 hours. After that, wipe it clean." Harper hesitated. "Sir, they've already abandoned orbit. It's overkill." He looked out again at the dying light of the shipyard's fires. "No," he said quietly. "It's a message." When the Oriental shipyards went dark, the explosion could be seen from 10 light minutes away. It was not destruction. It was demonstration. Across the galaxy, the repercussions struck like a tidal wave. On the trade world of Vasral, news of Earth's retaliation caused panic in the streets. Alien merchants closed their markets, ships fled the ports, and entire populations rioted against their own governments for provoking humanity. The once united council began fracturing under the weight of fear. "They're fighting ghosts," one Verithan envoy cried during an emergency session. "Human ships don't appear on sensors. Their weapons don't leave wreckage. They dismantle entire systems and vanish." The council speaker hissed, voice trembling. "They are not gods. They are flesh and blood." A distant voice from the shadows replied, "So were the ones who built the first fire." The assembly fell silent. Even among species who'd seen 1,000 wars, the name Earth had become a whisper of dread. Back on Artemis, Leona Hayes stared at the transmission logs flooding in. System after system. Victory after victory. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt like rot. The ship's AI broke the silence. "Incoming secure message. Source, Ares Command." The hologram flickered, revealing Reeves' stern face. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed fatigue and something darker. "It's done. The Council's fleets are crippled. They're calling for negotiations." Hayes exhaled. "Then we should answer." Reeves' expression hardened. "No. Not yet. They need to remember." "You're talking about genocide." "I'm talking about deterrence," he snapped. Then, quieter, "Every civilization out there needs to understand humanity will never be judged again." Kane entered the chamber mid-transmission, overhearing him. "And what happens when the deterrence becomes habit? When we start believing we're gods?" Reeve glared through the flickering hologram. "We've been treated like vermin for decades, Elias. You think they'd hesitate to erase us if they had the chance?" "I think we just proved we can erase them," Kane replied coldly. "Maybe that's the real problem." Hayes stepped between them. "Enough. Both of you. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about what comes after." But what did come after? A galaxy broken. A humanity feared. A silence that no diplomacy could fill. Weeks passed. The council collapsed into chaos. Some species sought peace. Others plotted retaliation. Many simply fled, abandoning the core worlds for the edges of the void. And among the rubble of the galactic order, a strange reverence began to form, cults whispering about the children of Sol, worshipping Earth not as a planet, but as a reckoning. Leona Hayes traveled to the ruins of Irinder Station under a white flag, escorted by 2 Ares frigates. The once mighty capital world now orbited a dying sun, its defense grid shattered. She entered the Hall of Suns, now filled with dust and silence, and found the Verithan speaker alone. It regarded her with a mixture of awe and hatred. "You came to finish what your kind began?" She shook her head. "No. I came to end it." The speaker's voice trembled. "You have ended everything. The Accord is gone. The galaxy bleeds." Hayes approached, her voice soft. "Maybe it needed to. Maybe peace built on fear was never peace at all." The alien's bioluminescent eyes dimmed. "You humans think you are saviors. But you are storms. You leave nothing standing." Leona turned away, whispering, "Then let the storm pass." She left the chamber without looking back. Behind her, the Hall of Suns, the heart of galactic civilization, collapsed inward, consumed by its own failing power core. The light of its sun flickered, then went out. On Earth, the sky above the Atlantic was alive with returning ships, silent shadows descending through thick clouds. Crowds gathered on beaches and rooftops, watching the lights streak down like falling stars. They cheered at first, and then fell silent. Because they saw the faces of those who returned. No victors. No conquerors. Just soldiers haunted by the price of survival. Reeves stood on the tarmac, his uniform blackened by battle, his expression unreadable. Hayes approached slowly, her voice breaking. "We won." He didn't look at her. "No. We just made everyone else lose." Kane stood beside them, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Maybe now they'll leave us alone." Reeve turned to him. "Or maybe now they'll never forgive us." Above them, the night sky glittered with 1,000 wounded stars, silent witnesses to a new era of fear. Humanity had risen, unbound, untouchable. But as the galaxy trembled, one truth echoed louder than all the victory chants. In surviving judgment, Earth had become the judge. The galaxy was silent. No council broadcasts. No trade convoys. No diplomatic transmissions. Just the long, hollow echo of a civilization that had once stretched across 1,000 suns, now broken, flickering like dying embers in the void. From orbit, Earth glowed like a scar against the black, beautiful, defiant, alone. Colonel Nathaniel Reeves stood inside the command spire of the Ares Citadel, an orbital fortress built after the Council's collapse. The massive viewport before him showed the curve of the planet below, clouds rolling across blue oceans like ghosts. It should have been a sight of triumph. Instead, it felt like standing over a grave. A soft tone signaled the arrival of Ambassador Leona Hayes. She stepped inside, her uniform replaced with civilian black, no insignia, no titles. "Just a human being again." "Colonel," she said quietly. "Ambassador," he replied out of habit. Then, after a long silence, "I suppose that title doesn't mean much anymore." She walked closer, her reflection overlapping his in the glass. "None of them do. The council's gone. The treaties are ash. What's left are ghosts." Reeve didn't turn to face her. "You warned me, Leona. You said wrath has a price. I thought it would be blood. Turns out it's time." She frowned. "Time?" He nodded slowly. "It's been 5 months since we last heard a single transmission from outside Sol space. Not a word. Not a whisper. The galaxy went dark." She looked out with him. "We silenced them." He shook his head. "No. They silenced themselves." Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Mars, Dr. Elias Kane sat inside the subterranean observatory, studying the faint signals drifting through interstellar space. Once, the stars had been alive with data and messages, trade codes, patrol networks. Now, they were quiet. But not empty. He leaned closer to the console, adjusting the filters. "Impossible," he whispered. A faint signal, ancient, encoded, pulsed from the direction of Irinder Prime, the world humanity had burned. It was weak, fragmented, but unmistakably human in structure. Kane transmitted a priority alert to Earth Command. Minutes later, the feed reached Reeve and Hayes aboard the Citadel. "It's them," Kane's voice crackled through the transmission. "Not the Council, the survivors. They're sending a message. It's repeating on an old diplomatic frequency." Reeves' brow furrowed. "Content?" Kane hesitated. "One line. Over and over." He read it aloud. "The stars remember." The words hung in the air like frost. Hayes felt a chill crawl up her spine. "The stars remember," she repeated. "A warning?" Reeves' expression hardened. "Or a promise." Weeks later, the message spread. Dozens of other signals appeared, ghost transmissions from systems humanity had devastated. Some were distress calls, others fragments of data, and a few were prayers. Hayes listened to one in her quarters, a child's voice speaking in broken galactic common. "We forgive you, please don't forget us." The message repeated, each time fainter, like an echo fading into eternity. She closed her eyes. For the first time since the Council's fall, she wept. Humanity rebuilt itself quickly. Without the Council's oversight, Earth's colonies expanded at a pace unseen in history. New technologies emerged from the ashes of war: hyperlight gates, zero-point reactors, quantum terraforming arrays. Within a decade, the Sol Alliance stretched across 36 worlds. They had won everything. And lost everyone. Because the galaxy beyond refused to answer. Exploration vessels vanished into the outer void. Probes never returned. Even light seemed slower beyond the borders of human space. It was as if the stars themselves had turned away. Rumors spread through the colonies, whispers of the silence, an invisible boundary beyond which nothing human could exist for long. Ships that crossed it reported hallucinations, impossible readings, and in some cases, voices. Reeve dismissed it as cosmic superstition until Artemis II failed to return. A year later, he stood with Hayes in the empty docking bay of the Citadel, staring at the data logs from the lost ship. The final recording flickered at static, then darkness, then a faint image of a star collapsing in on itself. Kane's voice, pre-recorded, filled the room. "We were wrong. The silence isn't them hiding. It's something else. Something, watching." The feed cut to black. Reeve looked at Hayes. "You think the galaxy's punishing us?" She didn't answer immediately. "Maybe not the galaxy. Maybe the very fabric of what we broke." He frowned. "Meaning?" She turned toward him, her expression hollow. The accord wasn't just politics. It was balance. We shattered it. Now the universe is restoring it. A long silence stretched between them. Reeve finally said, "We did what we had to do." Hayes whispered, "That's what every tyrant in history says." Later that night, Reeve stood alone in the observation dome. Earth glowed below, vibrant and alive, humanity's shining crown. Yet above it, the stars pulsed faintly, as though breathing. And then, for the first time in years, he heard something, a low, resonant hum, like the universe itself exhaling. The stars shifted. Not visibly, but in a way his instincts felt. The constellations seemed to realign. And then, a new pattern emerged, one no astronomer had ever mapped. It wasn't random. It was writing. In the old galactic tongue, ancient even before humanity's rise, the stars spelled a single word. Remember. Reeve's breath caught. His heart pounded. He whispered to himself, "We didn't start this war to be gods." From the shadows behind him, Hayes' voice replied softly, "But that's what we became." They stood together in silence as the stars burned brighter, not in anger, but in judgment. The kind that didn't come from councils or empires, but from something far older, far greater. The hum faded. The stars dimmed. And in their fading light, humanity finally understood. Months later, Reeve disbanded the Ares fleet. Hayes returned to Earth to lead what remained of the diplomatic corps. Kane's recordings became classified archives, sealed under the title Project Silence. And yet, every night, across every colony, humans looked up at the same sky, a sky that once feared them, and wondered if the stars still watched. Some said it was guilt. Others said it was redemption. But all agreed on one truth, whispered from Earth to the edge of the void. The galaxy judged us once. We judged it back. But the stars never forget. Epilogue. 1,000 years later, a probe drifted beyond the frontier, a relic of human curiosity. It carried recordings, memories, and a single message engraved in alloy. We were human. We survived. We remember. Light years away, in the ruins of Irinder Prime, a faint shimmer responded, ancient technology stirring after an age of silence. A voice, long forgotten, whispered back into the void. So do we. And across the darkness of space, two lost civilizations, broken, scarred, eternal, remembered each other once more.